Hello, this is Randall with the Philippines Project. Join me as I tell you the story about how I actually became to live in the Philippines and retire here. I found myself divorced at age 40, living alone for the first time in 14 years. Now, I'm a person who likes to have a really good partner in life. And after 14 years of my first marriage, well, that didn't happen. We weren't a match. It's okay, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be in the Philippines right now. I like to be in a relationship with a partner, somebody that has the same kind of common goals as what I have. My dad told me one time, he said, if two horses are pulling a wagon and they're pulling in two different directions, then that's not going to work out. And that's kind of the synopsis of my first marriage. My dad had known a couple of guys close to where we lived in Missouri that had actually married women from the Philippines. So he suggested that I look into that. This was around 1999. I guess I was kind of lucky because that was the dial-up internet days, and I went online and I actually found my wife fairly quickly. That's a whole nother story that I have in another video. I was actually introduced to her by one of her friends, a person that I had met in an old Yahoo chat room. This friend of hers, she had met in Singapore because my wife was an OFW, an overseas Filipino worker. And so she kind of put us together, and the rest is history. Again, long story short, I went to Singapore, I met my wife, we hit it off immediately. Her sense of humor and my sense of humor just really matched up, and we've been together for over 20 years now. As I said, it was a 20-year journey, but by 2018, we had already built a house here in the Philippines outside of Iloilo City. I loved visiting the Philippines, and we visited as much as we could as much as we were financially able to do so. And in 2021, I had two small businesses. I retired, I sold my businesses and retired at age 59, and we took off about 6 months later to spend some time in our retirement in the Philippines in our new house. After I retired, I was so ready to get busy living my life, at least most of the time, in the Philippines. So after being here for a period of time, I can look back and I kind of ask the question, what are some of the misconceptions that people have about moving to the Philippines, retiring in the Philippines, and so on. And that's what I want to address here in this video today. First, a lot of people think it's a tropical paradise. And it is a tropical paradise, I guess, of sorts in Southeast Asia. But everything's not always rosy. It's not like you're going to sit on the beach all day long and women are just going to throw themselves at your feet. It's just not, it doesn't work that way. The truth is, you still have to manage your relationships just as if you were still in the United States or the UK or Australia, wherever you're from. It's the same. Relationships between human beings are still the same, whether they're here or whether they're back in the West. Now, I will have to say, my relationship with my wife, her being from the Philippines, kind of gave me, in my opinion, and my opinion is that she was happy being more of a traditional wife. Now, that doesn't mean she didn't want to work and just stay home, cook and clean. That's not what we're getting at. She worked hard for a lot of years, just like I did. But, eventually we were able to start a business, couple of businesses, and retire. I just think being married to a Filipina makes managing that relationship, if you're selective and if you do your due diligence when meeting someone and you set up boundaries, it's a lot better and a lot easier than marrying someone from the West. Now, I also understand this. A lot of successful marriages in the United States. For me, at my time in my life, where I wanted to be, this is what I wanted. The second misconception is that, you can live like a king in the Philippines for $1,000 a month. An expat may be able to survive here on $1,000 a month, but you might find yourself eating dried fish and rice 2 or 3 meals a day, maybe throw a couple of eggs in there. But you're going to live a very low standard of living, and it's not going to be probably what you really want to do. And we all think, well, you know, if I can live cheap, I can endure I can do anything. I lived in the 70s. We didn't have air conditioning in the 70s. You know, it'll be the same when I get there. The only problem with that is in the 70s, I probably weighed 110, 120 pounds, and now I'm a bigger guy, and life has taken its toll on me, and I'm not as good a health as I once was. I'm in pretty good health, I believe. I've had all my medical stuff checked out, but what I'm saying is you don't feel the same as you did back there in the 70s. So don't get this romanticized idea that, oh wow, I used to have a car without air conditioning. We had the windows that roll up and down, and you know, transmissions were manual. It didn't have air conditioning inside the house. Those things are true, but you're probably in a different situation now physically than you were back then. It sure is nice here in the Philippines to be able to retreat to a nice, cool, comfortable, clean place that you can relax. I mean, after all, what is retirement for anyway? You're not going to be able to live here on $1,000 a month and take trips to the beach, take trips to the mountains, take trips to different places and enjoy lavish resorts. It's just not going to happen on $1,000 a month. To be at a really nice resort, you're going to pay pretty close to some of the U.S. prices for hotels. So, you know, there are a lot of people on the internet, a lot of people doing these Philippines videos telling you how cheap it's going to be here, you know, when you retire. And sometimes it's just not what it's cracked up to be. And I got to be honest with you. If you move here and your income's about $1,000 a month or $1,200 a month, you really don't have the safety net that you need. You need to come here with a pretty good lump of cash. I'd say $20,000 at least, you know, because what are you going to do here when you have to go to the hospital and you don't have health insurance there? Medicare is not going to take care of you because they don't pay here. Your VA, unless you're service connected, is not going to take care of your health. And even that, you're going to have to be in one of the bigger cities. I believe it's only in Manila that they can actually take care of that. So, and if you, I'm not a veteran, so if you have expertise in this area, put your comment down below so I can find out, so I can let people know. If you try to retire on $1,000 a month and you don't have a safety net, you don't have a good way of accessing some cash, there are emergencies that are going to come up. And let's face it, guys, if you live here, you know that sometimes you're going to have to help the family out. Now, I didn't retire here on $1,000 a month. I'm not going to get into my finances right now, but I will tell you this, that's not really going to be a long-term option, because you stub your toe one time and you end up in the hospital. You might be okay for a month, but that $1,000 a month, any savings you have, is going to start to go down. There's also a language barrier here. Not as bad as a lot of Southeast Asian companies. I've been to Thailand, I've been to Singapore. Singapore is pretty good. A lot of people speak English. Thailand, they don't. So in the Philippines, English is spoken, and it is a very Western-facing country. They love the U.S., they love foreigners here, but sometimes it can be a challenge to get around, to get directions, because a lot of times the Filipino people, they go to their little job, they go home, they eat, they sleep, they get back up, and they work 6 days a week. They don't have a lot of time for moving around different directions and you know, knowing the scope. They probably don't even have a car, so you know, it's hard to get good directions here in the Philippines. And Google Maps does not always work the way you think it should be. It doesn't work the same as it does in the United States. A lot of businesses here, if you want to do shopping and you say, well, I'm going to find a store on Google, and you get on there and sometimes the place is not even there. It's been closed for 2 or 3 years, or maybe the business is there, but it's not even going to show up on Google most of the time. Another thing that you might have to get used to, it's not so bad here in Iloilo City, and I think they're coming a long way, but you're going to have blackouts here. They call them brownouts here in Iloilo. But that's the thing that's going to happen. I mean, I've woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning, sweat dripping down, and you just kind of jump up out of bed like, what's going on? And of course, you know, there's no electricity, and that's just something you have to deal with. You're not going to be able to change that unless you get a generator or you get solar power, and that can be pretty expensive. Plus, if you want to leave the house, it's not air conditioned outside. The weather is not going to be nice and cool and breezy and you're going to be sweating when you go outside. I guarantee it. So if you can't stand the hot, humid weather, if you really can't, you better not come here. I'm just telling you, it's not going away. But I will say this, if you'll do some planning and you'll visit the Philippines, like I did several times before I ever decided to retire here, that's a really good plan before you actually take the plunge and sell everything and move to the Philippines in your retirement. You may get here and have a rude awakening, want to leave and not have anywhere to go back to. If you do planning and if you do some visiting and you travel around the Philippines to find the right place that fits you, then you can have a very enjoyable retirement here. Now, I prefer to go back to the U.S. and back here. I spend about, on average, the last 2 years, 8 months here and 4 months in the U.S. Last time we just actually got back. Actually, we just spent 3 months in the United States. And we enjoy that. I have grandkids, I've got brothers, I've got daughters there. So it's important if you're going to fund your retirement, you got to think about that. For a husband and wife, it's at least $3,000 just to go back and forth. And that's another thing. Besides a healthy savings account for like medical expenses and unexpected expenses, that trip back to the United States that you may have to take for whatever reason, a death in the family, a medical situation that you want to go back to the United States and have your medical care done there, that's going to cost you a lot of money. Right now in 2024, I'm just ballparking it, but for one person, it's about $1,500 round trip or $3,000 for a couple. And I lived in the state of Missouri, and so I had several, different flights I had to take. Living in the Philippines and retiring in the Philippines can really be a real treat. I mean, there's lots of places to explore. You can go fishing. There's adventures you can do. You can visit new places. You can take up a new hobby like diving. Learn how to ride a motorcycle. It's unlimited when you have all the time in your retirement. It's unlimited what you can do. You can do a lot of traveling within the Philippines. You can visit those resorts. If you have the money, you will never be bored here if you have enough money to make it here. If you've been here a little while and you kind of getting stir crazy, maybe you like the air conditioning too much, and I go through these cycles, the best thing you can do to kind of combat that melancholy feeling sometimes is to get out with the Filipino people, get out in town, interact with local people here, learn a little bit of the language, and that will perk you up, believe me. I've experienced that so many times here. I get to experience new things here every day. Things like trying new foods, learning the language, immersing myself in the culture here. It's really amazing how much joy you can find in the simple things and the simple lifestyle here in the Philippines. There's always something new to explore. And I feel like I'm constantly learning and growing when I retired here in the Philippines. There's always something new to explore, and I feel like I'm constantly growing and learning here. I love how Filipino culture values family relationships above all else. It's a stark contrast to the fast-paced, individualistic lifestyle that we have back in the United States. And living in the Philippines in that regard is a really refreshing change for me. The greatest thing for me here in the Philippines is just enjoying the laid-back culture and spending a lot of time with families and the local people here. Some people say it's too laid back. As a Westerner, as a person from the West, you can find the laid-back culture here may not fit your very productive lifestyle that you're leading now. I think the biggest transformation for me as an expat is I have learned patience. Let me restate that. The Philippines has taught me patience. Now that patience is hard fought, and it's fraught with many times where you have to get a hold of yourself and you have to realize where you're at. This is where you always wanted to be. So sit back and enjoy it. If you have to wait, you just have to wait here in the Philippines. It's the way it is. It seems like everywhere you go, especially like to pay bills or things like of this nature, you're always going to have to wait in line. You're always going to have to be patient and wait your turn here in the Philippines. It's not super efficient here. But again, I think that has really taught me to be a more patient and enduring individual. And that's helped me grow as a person. What should you take away from this video? I had a romantic idea about retiring in the Philippines, being able to live on my Social Security check and enjoying my life, and it was going to be great every day. And I'm sure if you've never been here, you might feel the same way. Just don't set your expectations so high that when you get here, you find out it's not like all the rosy videos that you hear about beautiful women and laying on the beach and drinking a nice drink and just, taking the rest of your life easy. If you have the right kind of money, I guess you can do that, but that's actually a pretty boring life if you ask me. My advice is that you prepare yourself for some of the challenges that you're going to face here in the Philippines as an expat. Some of the things I've already mentioned, like lack of infrastructure here, internet sometimes is slow, your phones don't always work when you walk around, you got to wait for that. Sometimes you got to get in a hot spot. You may have to go to a little store and put 5 pesos in and use their what they call peso Wi-Fi. Some things just aren't as good and stable as they are back in the U.S. Learn patience above all else. Don't be that angry expat that nobody wants to be around when you get here. Come here with open eyes and an open heart, and maybe it'll just change you into a better person when you come here. Or you might just get pissed off and go back. I've got a friend of mine right now. It's not because he's pissed off, but he is going to move back. He'd already sold all of his stuff and moved to the Philippines. I don't know how long he's been here, but he's moving back to the United States. He's got his own reasons. And, those are good, valid reasons to go back. But before you make a big jump, at least come and visit and understand it's not always going to be perfect here. Foreigners are treated very well here. But don't take advantage of the polite culture here in the Philippines. You piss off the wrong Filipino and you may just be sorry. You don't want to be angry in public. You don't want to be argumentative. You don't want to say something to somebody's face and just make them lose face in front of other Filipinos. You may not like the result of that. Hopefully once you come here and you visit it a few times, you'll be able to enjoy the laid-back culture here in the Philippines. It's a different way of life, and it's a life that I enjoy. If you made it this far, thanks for watching the video. If you're considering moving to the Philippines, or just you're curious about the life here, leave your thoughts and comments down below in the comments section, and be sure to check out my other videos for more insights on how to retire here in the Philippines.